Have you ever just been listening to a piece of music? Maybe you're sitting quietly with your headphones on, and suddenly you start to feel kind of, I don't know, physically restless?
Oh, yeah, like you can't quite get comfortable.
Exactly. Like your heartbeat speeds up just a tiny fraction, or the space around you starts to feel strangely distorted. Or maybe, even though you were sitting perfectly still in your chair, your center of gravity feels like it just shifts.
Right, you get that weird, unsettling sensation right in your gut.
Yeah, almost like you're losing your balance out of nowhere.
It's a very specific kind of dizzying physiological state. And, we usually just write it off as our imagination.
Or like we just had way too much coffee that morning.
Exactly. Because we're completely conditioned to think of music as this purely abstract aesthetic experience.
Right, we treat it like a painting, something we are just looking at from a safe distance. But today's mission for this deep dive is to explore a cognitive science article that completely shatters that assumption.
It really does. It flips the whole concept on its head.
Because the research we are looking at explains how music is not just an auditory experience. It actively interferes with our physical bodies. And some music actually is intentionally engineered to hijack and destabilize your nervous system.
Which is wild to think about.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I ask you or anyone listening to describe what music does, the default vocabulary is just entirely emotional.
Yeah, always.
We say a song is happy, or it's sad, or it's relaxing. We treat music as a vehicle for feeling.
Right. The standard cultural assumption is basically that sound waves hit your ear, your brain decodes the melody, you feel an emotion, and then your body reacts to that emotion.
But that's not what's happening.
Not at all. Cognitive science shows us the sequence is completely backward. The physical reaction happens in the brainstem and the motor cortex first.
Wait, first?
First, the conscious emotion you feel is just a delayed echo of that physical manipulation.
So my body is reacting before my conscious mind even registers that I like or dislike the song.
Long before.
Yeah.
The source material outlines 3 core cognitive mechanisms that get triggered instantaneously by sound.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is entrainment. And this isn't just like tapping your foot to a catchy beat. This is the literal biological synchronization of your autonomic nervous system.
So like my heartbeat.
Your heartbeat, your respiration rate, even your neural oscillations, they sync up to an external rhythmic stimulus. Your vagus nerve actually alters your cardiovascular rhythms to mirror the exact tempo you are hearing.
That's genuinely crazy.
It is. And the second mechanism is predictive processing, where your brain acts as this inference engine. It's constantly mapping out the immediate future of the soundscape just to save metabolic energy.
Wow, okay. And the third?
The third is auditory motor coupling.
Auditory motor coupling. Let me guess, the ear is directly wired to the muscles.
Pretty much, yeah. The auditory cortex has these massive bidirectional neural pathways straight to the basal ganglia and the supplementary motor area.
And those are the parts that control movement.
Right. Exactly. They plan and execute your physical movements.
Hmm.
So when you hear a beat, your motor system is literally engaged. It fires as if you are moving, even if you are sitting completely still.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, through these 3 mechanisms, your brain processes music as an architectural space that you are actively moving through.
Okay, calling it an architectural space completely changes the stakes here. Like, our brains aren't treating music like a painting on a wall. We aren't just choosing to listen to an object.
No, not at all.
We are walking into a physical room and just, like, submitting our balance to the audio.
You're submitting to it, yes.
Okay.
The source actually uses this incredibly powerful phrase for this. It argues that we process music not as an external rhythm, but as an internal gravity field.
An internal gravity field.
Yeah.
That implies the music literally dictates the physics of our internal world while it's playing.
And just like physical gravity, when it is steady, you don't even notice it, right? You just feel grounded.
Right, you just feel normal.
Exactly. So to understand why certain music makes you feel physically restless or creeped out, we first have to look at the biology of why normal music feels comfortable.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it comes back to that predictive processing we mentioned. The brain is just this incredibly expensive organ to run, metabolically speaking.
It takes a lot of calories.
Huge amount of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So to save energy, it doesn't want to process every single tiny sensory detail as if it's brand new.
Mm.
It wants to predict the future and only spend energy processing the stuff that's unexpected.
So if I'm listening to, say, a standard pop or rock track, My brain is constantly anticipating where the next snare hit will land.
Right, or what the next chord is going to be.
Got it.
Because standard Western music is highly periodic,
Yeah.
right? It's mathematically very rigid. A standard 4/4 time signature is incredibly easy for the brain to process.
Because it's predictable.
Perfectly predictable.
Yeah.
Your brain's internal model perfectly matches the incoming reality. And when expectation matches reality, you generate zero prediction errors.
Okay, prediction errors.
Yeah, your neural networks don't have to scramble to update their models. The cognitive scientists in the text call this the brain's stable mode.
The gravity is working, the floor is solid, we're safe.
Exactly.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. What happens to the nervous system when the music betrays those structural predictions?
That is when the brain enters a state of unstable perception.
Unstable perception, meaning the internal model is just destroyed.
Destroyed. When the incoming sound waves consistently violate your predictive models, your brain doesn't just register an aesthetic dislike. It doesn't just go, "Oh, I don't care for this song."
Right.
It registers a structural failure of reality. It interprets that failure to predict the environment as a literal physical threat. And that internal gravity field we talked about, it begins to warp.
Wow. And the source breaks down this betrayal into specific types of cognitive collapse, right? Like instead of just playing random noise, certain music systematically dismantles our sense of stability.
Yes, very systematically.
And the first mechanism they detail is the collapse of rhythm.
Right. And this doesn't mean the music just lacks rhythm entirely. It means the rhythm refuses to behave according to predictable mathematics.
Like it's doing the math wrong on purpose.
Exactly. The tools used here are things like microtiming deviations, asymmetrical time signatures, or intentionally missing beats.
Okay, wait. I struggle to buy that a micro deviation causes a genuine physical threat response. Like, if a drummer at a local dive bar is slightly offbeat, I don't feel dizzy or threatened. I just think, they need to practice.
Sure.
Why is this different?
Well, that is a crucial distinction. When a local drummer is just sloppy, their timing errors are random.
Okay.
Your brain easily categorizes that as human error, which is a known variable. It just filters it out.
It's like, oh, he's just bad.
Exactly. But the text points to electronic artists, specifically someone like Aphex Twin, to illustrate systematic deviation.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Right? In IDM, or intelligent dance music, you have this grid-like mechanical precision of a synthesizer or a drum machine. But programmed into that grid are these intentional, complex microtiming deviations that follow a really bizarre mathematical logic.
Wait, so the rhythm is technically functioning, but because it never quite settles into a pattern my brain can predict, my brain is stuck in a loop trying to solve a math problem that has no solution.
That's exactly it. Your brain encounters the microdeviation, it logs a prediction error, and it scrambles to recalculate its model for the next beat.
But it's wrong again.
Yes. The next beat is off by a completely different, yet entirely deliberate margin. It's not random noise at all. It's a shifting fractal pattern.
Oh, man.
So you are trapped in this endless cycle of failing to converge on a stable prediction. And because of that auditory motor coupling we talked about, your motor cortex is literally trying to physically lock your muscles into a gear that just keeps changing size.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. That endless failure to converge creates profound physical exhaustion and restlessness.
That totally explains why you can feel physically tense after listening to heavily syncopated or really glitchy electronic music. Your nervous system is basically constantly bracing for an impact that lands at the wrong millisecond.
Racing for an impact, yes. That's a great way to put it.
And that's just the rhythmic side. The second method of collapse the text brings up is auditory spatial mapping, which I think is arguably even stranger.
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of how the auditory cortex builds a 3D picture of your environment in the first place.
Like how we know where things are just by hearing them.
Right. Even with your eyes wide open, your brain uses what are called interaural time differences and interaural level differences.
What does that mean in plain English?
It basically calculates the tiny microsecond delay between a sound hitting your left ear versus your right ear. And it listens to how sound waves reflect off physical surfaces to construct a literal spatial geometry of the physical room you are in.
So normally, in a standard song mix, there's a very clear, stable geometry to it. Bass frequencies are anchored low, vocals are usually centered right in front of your face, and high frequencies sit clearly on the sides or up above.
Exactly. It mimics physical reality.
But experimental music completely weaponizes this mapping, doesn't it?
Oh, it completely shatters the geometry. The text describes music where sounds bounce violently around without any physical logic. The panning sways irregularly, and depth cues are literally inverted.
Inverted, like backward.
Yeah, producers can manipulate the phase of the audio to make sounds appear to originate from inside your own skull. Or they take a sound that should acoustically sound like it's miles away, and they place it aggressively in your immediate foreground.
Okay, if my brain is using sound to build the literal physical room around me, and the music is painting a room that is constantly changing shape, or reversing depth, or dissolving its walls, well, my body is going to react as if the actual room I am sitting in is collapsing.
Yes, you experience a massive sensory mismatch. Your vestibular system, so your inner ear and your muscles, is reporting that you are sitting perfectly still in a chair.
Right.
But your auditory spatial map is screaming to your brain that the environment is spinning, stretching, and warping all around you.
That sounds terrifying.
The result is what they call acoustic vertigo. Your center of gravity feels like it sways, simply because your brain cannot reconcile these conflicting data streams.
Acoustic vertigo. Wow. It makes total sense why you'd feel dizzy or nauseous listening to that. So we have the motor cortex exhausted by unsolvable rhythm math, and now the spatial map is melting our sense of balance.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And this all builds into the final concept the source discusses, which is the compounding accumulation of prediction errors.
Right, because in a normal, healthy cognitive loop, you encounter an anomaly, your brain updates its predictive model, and you just return to stability.
Back to the stable mode.
Yes, and that precious metabolic energy we talked about earlier is conserved.
But certain musical techniques prevent that return to stability entirely. Like the source mentions intentionally unresolved chords, where the music swells up toward a resolution that just never arrives.
Right, or non-terminating chord progressions that loop infinitely, and then they combine that with the introduction of pure, unpitched noise.
So what happens in the brain then?
Biologically, every time a prediction error is triggered, there is a spike in neural activity. It's an alarm system. So if you use unresolved chords and infinite looping progressions while you're simultaneously scrambling the rhythm and breaking the spatial map, those prediction errors don't just happen occasionally.
It'll just keep happening.
They stack up exponentially.
It's almost like, I don't know, trying to walk up an MC Escher staircase.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Like your foot steps forward expecting a solid surface based on all the visual logic, but the geometry is actually impossible, so your foot just falls through empty air forever.
That is exactly the structural impossibility the brain is facing here. The synaptic pathways just become overwhelmed by the continuous firing of these error signals. And at a certain threshold of accumulated errors, the cognitive load just becomes way too heavy.
The brain just gives up.
It abandons the attempt to process the incoming data as art. There is this really striking conclusion in the text about this exact moment. Basically, the brain concludes, this is an incomprehensible environment.
Wow. Not just, oh, this is a really challenging piece of music.
No.
A full neurological shift to, I am in an incomprehensible physical environment.
Exactly. The music completely stops being an object of observation. It becomes a hostile environmental anomaly.
A hostile anomaly.
Yeah, your amygdala and your autonomic nervous system have to get involved because failing to comprehend your physical environment is historically an evolutionary danger.
So what does this all mean? We've outlined the failure of rhythm, the collapse of acoustic space, and this massive synaptic exhaustion of prediction errors. Why does this specific cocktail of failures make our skin crawl? Why do we feel physically unnerved instead of just feeling bored or, annoyed by the song?
Because the listener is not just experiencing psychological distaste. Neurologically, they're experiencing the very real sensation of their body losing control. It is a somatic defense mechanism.
A defense mechanism against a broken reality model.
Precisely. The music is actively betraying the brain's baseline prediction of the physical world, which triggers tangible physical illusions. You aren't imagining the discomfort. Your subjective sense of time actually distorts because your internal clock relies on rhythm to anchor it.
And that rhythm is failing to converge.
Right. Your breathing becomes shallow or irregular because your vagus nerve is desperately trying to entrain to unstable cues. Your nervous system is basically sounding an alarm because its operating system failing to render reality correctly.
It is genuinely fascinating to realize that artists have actually figured this out. Like, if we look at the trajectory of modern music, especially since the mid-20th century, avant-garde classical and electronic musicians haven't just been making weird sounds for the sake of it.
No, not at all.
They have actively sought out this exact neurological instability.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, The whole evolution of audio technology gave musicians the tools to completely dephysicalize sound.
Right. Before synthesizers and digital audio workstations, music was entirely bound by the physical limitations of wood, metal, and human breath.
Exactly. But once you can generate textures and acoustic spaces that could never exist in the natural world, breaking cognitive stability became this wild new frontier.
And the source points out that in genres like ambient or noise or IDM, this breakdown isn't an accident. It is the core aesthetic choice. The goal isn't to get you to tap your foot.
No, the goal is to dismantle your brain's ability to locate your foot in space.
Yes.
It really transcends musical experimentation entirely. It is a deliberate, calculated attempt to redesign human perception. These artists are utilizing sound waves to systematically bypass your conscious, analytical mind and just tinker directly with your autonomic nervous system.
Which really changes the entire paradigm of how we view our relationship with audio.
Completely.
Most of us treat music as a totally passive background element. We put on a playlist while we commute or while we work, assuming we are the ones in control, just consuming a piece of entertainment. But this research proves there's nothing passive about it.
No. The ultimate takeaway from the cognitive science here is that music, particularly destabilizing music, functions as a highly advanced form of cognitive engineering.
It manipulates our predictive models and reconstructs our physical sensations from the inside out.
Unstable music is a technology. It exposes the boundaries and the limitations of our body's operating system by intentionally feeding it data it just cannot compile.
It finds the bugs in our internal software and exploits them.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to phrase it.
It's brilliant, but it's also, deeply unsettling when you realize just how vulnerable our fundamental perception of reality is to just a few strategically vibrating molecules of air.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
Well, if highly structured sound waves can do all of this to our nervous system in just a few minutes, what else in our environment is actively engineering our cognition?
Oh, wow. That is exactly the thought I want to leave you with today. If a cleverly arranged electronic track can literally hack your body's OS, trigger all these prediction errors, and completely rewrite your internal sense of space and gravity, well, what other invisible fields in our daily modern environments are doing the exact same thing to you?
There's so much.
Right. Think about the environments you move through every single day. The constant low-frequency hum of city traffic or massive industrial HVAC systems that you've just trained yourself to tune out.
Or the imperceptible high-speed flicker of the fluorescent lights above your office desk.
Exactly. Or even the relentless, asymmetrical, rhythmic scroll of a screen under your thumb. What invisible, unpredictable fields are quietly dictating how your autonomic nervous system feels right now? Are they making you restless or fatigued or anxious without you even noticing the cognitive prediction errors just stacking up in the background?
It's definitely something to think about.
So the next time you are sitting in a chair listening to a song and you suddenly feel that weird, unsettling shift in your center of gravity, don't just brush it off as your imagination. It is just your brain frantically recalculating the stability of reality itself. Keep your feet on the ground.